Welcome, Chad.
Hey, Eddie, long-time listener, first-time caller. How are you, man?
Great, thank you. Thanks for calling and thanks for listening. What do you got?
No problem. I wanted to talk about a couple bands. Your favorite, Rival Sons. My favorite, Wolfmother. I've been banging that drum since 2005. And then you turned me on to Dirty Honey, who I think are amazing, great bands. So my thing is, I would love to see this. I don't think it may or may not ever happen. I'd love to see a concert that would have Dirty Honey and Wolfmother and Rival Sons co-headline. We are actually going to see Rival Sons and STP here in Houston in October, followed by Greta Van Fleet as well. What are your thoughts after talking to his name, I can't remember his name, but the lead singer from Wolfmother you had on your show last week. What are your thoughts after you came to Houston? Yeah, Andrew. What are your thoughts after you came to Houston and saw them? I know you said you were blown away, but can you compare them and Rival Sons?
A little different. The thing I like that both bands share is that they're both completely real riff-based heavy rock bands. The thing that I would say now I know Rival Sons music if I'm being honest, way better than I know Wolfmother's. Like, I liked what I saw that day from Wolfmother, and I know some of their songs, but I'd be lying to you if I told you I ever sat down in my studio and listened to a Wolfmother album start to finish. I'm kind of late to the party on them. But what connected with me so much when I saw them a year ago in Houston was they came out as a trio, and they just it was just what I love. It was just really raw, like kick-ass live riff. Andrew sang great, trio. It was like an onslaught. It really was. It was great, and they had a big stage, and the sound was great. You're from Houston. Were you there at Carbach?
I missed that show, but I've seen them 4 times previously. That's the only show I've missed in Houston, and I was upset that I missed that show because I know you were there, and I saw the videos that you had posted. And again, they did their thing, and they've always been phenomenal live.
Yeah, so I at that show, I had a chance to talk to, and I had met Andrew Stockdale a couple times prior to that, and I had a chance to talk to him a little bit there, and we exchanged numbers. And thanks, Chad, for the call. I'm just going to try to move quickly today because there's so many callers. But thank you. So I met him. We talked for a little bit. We exchanged numbers. He lives in Australia. So I told him, when you come to New York, let's hook up. And that's how that interview happened a couple weeks ago. Rival Sons are different in the sense that Rival Sons have a lot more different texture and sounds within their music, meaning that they have beautiful, lush ballads. They can go off on some sort of like trippy scene and get really spacey at times. They can really jam at times. And then they could just knock you over the head with like a 3-minute song with a killer riff as well. So I think there's again, I've limited knowledge of the Wolfmother catalog, but from what I've heard of it, Rival Sons to me has a lot more diversity and sides to them than Wolfmother, which at least in the show that I saw Wolfmother play, it was just like AC/DC-esque, pound you on the head, heavy rock. It really was very, very cool. The idea of these bands touring together, a lot of fans often have these ideas of who should or shouldn't be touring together and these lineups they put together in their head. There's so much that goes into bands coupled up and touring together. There's budgets, there's money, there's whether the other band wants to be on the same bill, the billing order, the availability. Some band may see themselves as bigger than the other band may not see it that way. There's a lot that goes into that. I think when we had Jay Buchanan from Rival Sons on yesterday, it was interesting what he said because he was very appreciative of the fact and even sort of blown away that this tour they have coming up with Stone Temple Pilots is a co-headline. And for you guys that don't know the verbiage, a co-headline means each band gets equal set time, equal billing, equal lights, equal sound, equal amount of items at merch, All that stuff is negotiated out. Usually equal money. Everything is split 50-50. And then there's different, but you can still do negotiations within that. I'm pretty sure, I'd be shocked if Stone Temple Pilots isn't closing every night on that tour. I would think that both bands are going to have equal set times, but STP, and you know what? They that would be smart for all if they did that, because STP has the hits. I'm sure that it's equal across the board in terms of billing. Maybe not even equal as far as money, but I'd be shocked if STP doesn't close every night. But Jay yesterday was very appreciative of the fact that they even called it a co-headline, because STP is a much more established band and has 8, 9 big radio songs over the decades. But when you guys come up with the billings of what, people you'd like to see, we all have that. We've all had these bills in our mind. Like, wouldn't it be great to see this one tour with this one? But there's so much politics. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. There's record label involvement. There's booking agent involvement. There's ego, money, billing. Like I said, I ran it all down. There's so much involved. It's not just a case of drawing a couple names and saying, let's go out on the road. Ricky in North Carolina. Hey, Rick.
Hey, Eddie. Talking the other day about cameras and cell phones at shows. I could do a whole hour on it, but I'll go as quick as I can because I got a couple thoughts. One, I think they're annoying, so I agree with that. But two, when you charge someone to come to a show, paying an obscene amount of money, it's kind of odd to tell them what they can't do anymore. Because, when you couldn't bring a camera to a show didn't cost $400. And my biggest gripe, because I'm trying to go as quick as I can, I don't want to hear any artist about the sanctity of the live show when they would sell me their sweaty underwear if I'd buy it. Like, the sanctity left a long time ago.
There's a side for me, Ricky, and I was thinking about this, and when I say this, I just sound like an old man, but how old are you, Ricky, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll be 40 in October.
Okay, so you're not super young, but you're old enough to remember the days where, well, you certainly are probably old enough to remember the days where to buy a concert ticket, you had to go to a Ticketmaster or a Ticketron, right?
Yes, absolutely, or a sound shop or grocery store. Even grocery stores sold them, but yeah, I've waited in line for tickets.
Yeah. So there's a thing about it where you kind of do miss the days where the person who got the best locations were not the people who had the most money, who could buy the VIPs, but the people that were the most passionate and would line up, to get there and sleep over in those sleeping bags in front of a store that had a Ticketmaster computer in it. I mean, there is a side of me that really does miss that. And the fact that, back in the day, concerts used to have like maybe 2 price levels. The floor was $50 and the sides were $35, I've got all the ticket stubs. Yeah. So there is a side of me that misses that. And the whole thing, and real quick, to your point, the mystique of it, like, I think between social media and the fact that with money, you can buy anything, whether it's the equipment on stage with most artists or meeting them or whatever, some of that mystique has been knocked down too.
Yeah, and the one more thing that no one ever talks about, but I've been going to shows since I was probably 15, 14 when I started going by myself, and I was going before that with my mom. She's going with me to see Guns N' Roses in September, but I remember going to shows back then, and, the crowd was a lot wilder because no one was worried about getting seen on YouTube 4 days later. No one talks about that really, like the whole girls taking off their shirts, people making out. Like now, if you're there with some chick you ain't supposed to be there with, somebody have a video of it and post it on YouTube, and now you're busted. No, no one pulls their shirts off anymore. All that stuff.
Ricky, I got to go. Thank you, man. Ricky's point is interesting because when we had that cell phone conversation earlier this week, I talked about that company Yonder, which makes the pouches that makes you not be able to access your phone when you are in a concert. And the CEO of that company, when he was on with me, said the reason that he developed this device that makes you not be able to access your phone was not so much to protect the artists from people filming them or taking photos of them while they play, but because he felt people with cameras inhibited the behavior of others in the audience. I never thought of that, and that's exactly what Ricky is alluding to right there. That, say you're really getting into a show and you're busting out the air drums or air guitar, or you're just cutting loose and really being absorbed in the show and getting lost in it. Or, like Ricky said, if there was someone you're not supposed to be, whatever the case may be, you run the risk of, like, okay, you say you start getting all animated and into a show, and then all of a sudden, ooh, I'm going to take video of this guy acting like a lunatic at a concert. I'm going to put it on YouTube. So it actually, something I never considered, which the CEO of the company that makes the device that locks up your phone said, that's what really drove him to come up with that. Not whether the artists were okay with being filmed on stage, but people around you being filmed. It's a really, really interesting point, and it does play into it. When I went to that Stone Temple Pilots show at the Troubadour, when we had the Sirius XM deal, and I did that special where we introduced Jeff, the new singer of STP, and then they played the Troubadour. That was the first time I saw the phones being locked up for people that went in there. And Stone Temple's Pilots manager, who's a friend of mine, he said to me, watch what's going to happen in that venue. Everyone is engaged. Everyone's talking to each other. Everyone's 100% focused on the show and not looking at their phones. And he said it changes, not only does it protect the band from video getting out, but it changes the entire environment in the room because people have nothing to do but engage with the people in there and to watch the band. By the way, real quick, because I know we got to go to a break. Speaking of the obsession of cell phones, and we are all guilty of it, looking at these screens constantly, right? So last night, I'm watching Tucker Carlson, and he has a doctor on, the resident doctor there that they use when there's medical stories. I think his last name was Siegel, Dr. Siegel. And I was doing some other stuff. I was on my phone and my computer, and I had the news on, and I had that show on in the background. So he goes to break. He comes, like, he teases going into break, and he goes, when we come back, people are growing horns out of their head. True story.